That's right. This is a fellow named Thayer Scudder, a professor at the California Institute of Technology, who's considered the world's leading authority on dam resettlement. As a graduate student back in the 50s, he was asked to study a people known as the Tonga, who lived along the Zambezi River in what is now Zambia and Zimbabwe, because a dam was about to be built on the river and it would force these people to move. So the idea was to document their lives before their lives went through a radical change. And he spent about a year studying them and then went back to visit them every couple of years since. And what he ended up documenting was the decline and really the destruction of this culture. When I went to see them in 2002, they'd been moved to infertile land. Their last crop had been 100% disaster. They were close to starvation. They'd become alcoholics. They'd resorted to witchcraft, and all the foundations of their culture had disappeared.
Australia has the Murray River and tremendous acreage of gum trees, eucalyptus trees, but yet they're dying.
That's right. The third person I wrote about is a fellow named Don Blackmore, who is the manager of the only major river system in Australia, the Murray-Darling. And it's been going through a very serious period that started with the construction of two very big dams at the top of the system going back to the 50, 60 years ago. And since then, there have been hundreds of diversions from the river for farmers. The result is that the river is dying, and with the river, hundreds of thousands of these river red gum trees are also dying. And there's a lagoon at the bottom of the system called the Coorong, which is also near death. As a result of all the diversions, the river now has something like a quarter of the flow it had before all these dams and diversions. So it's been a devastating problem. And what Don tried to do is to get farmers and politicians to return some of the water they were taking to the river. They agreed in principle, but there's been a severe drought in Australia for the last 6 years, and so it hasn't started to happen yet. And meanwhile, these trees, a lot of fish, a lot of birds have just perished as a result.
You spent years traveling and documenting the struggles over these dams as they were being proposed, as they were being built, and the circumstances before and after. And you've brought some pictures with you. Could you share some with us?
Sure, I'd be glad to.
And of course, I think the first one is the picture of the anti-dam activist from India.
Meda Patkar. This is her in her little office.
And we also find that she is very unassuming.
That's right.
She won lots of awards, but she doesn't really care too much about those.
No, she's interested only in one thing, and that's stopping the dam, organizing people on behalf of that and associated causes, and that's what she does. And this is a shot of her as she sits on the floor on the phone in her little office in Badwani, which will eventually be underwater.
Someone from a middle-class environment who basically has chosen a life almost of poverty.
That's right. That's right.
And the dams that she was fighting were going to affect a lot of people who really considered sort of less than the untouchables, the tribals.
The tribal people, that's right. And as I said, their whole cultures will be destroyed as they are dispersed to cities or to highly inadequate resettlement camps.
Which river are we looking at?
This is the Narmada River. This is the affected river. This shot shows a train going over the river. Once the dam is completed, that water will inundate that bridge, and in fact there's a new bridge being built as a result.
Of course, what we find in that kind of development is that lots of different development has to change, and that's millions, billions of dollars.
Well, these dam projects are enormously expensive. The most expensive one is the Three Gorges Dam in China, which will probably end up costing $50 billion. Many dams cost into the billions. And of course, that's one reason that central governments are happy to build them, because it means that international agencies like the World Bank are funneling these huge amounts of money through them. Opportunities for patronage, bribes result.
The rivers are channelized?
This is a canal that extends from the Narmada River. It's the largest canal system in the world. It alone will displace something like 100,000 people. and yet it is probably too big for the system that's been built. It's this vast cement canyon.
When you have the vegetation, trees die.
That's right. And in the Narmada, this is what used to be a village. This was the meeting tree where villagers would gather. It's no longer the meeting tree because you can see it's partially submerged. Now, it was when that picture was taken, now it's totally submerged. And this is the village where Maida would station herself, waiting for the water to rise until she'd be inundated. And there are huts over to the left where she would attach herself, and in good monsoon years the water would rise up, and that's where she would try to drown. She never did drown, usually because, well, in one case the police stopped her at the last second, grabbed her away because they didn't want to have the Indian government endure the embarrassment of her death.
And another time the local people pulled her out.
That's right, because they couldn't bear the thought of her dying. And she gave up that tactic then. And these are cornfields right around her village where she stayed. The tribal people there grew corn. When we were there, I went with a photographer named Bob Dawson. These Indian photographs are his. We wanted to see the dam, and we were told again and again that we'd have no problem. And yet when we got to the dam, we were told, no, you can't take a picture of the dam.
Which is very peculiar.
Yes, indeed. So I actually diverted our guide, asking him various questions so that Bob could go over to the guardrail and take this picture, which gives you a little bit of a hint of what this enormous dam is like. And this is a beautiful temple on the edge of the Narmada. It too will be inundated.
They're not planning to move these archaeological historic sites.
Oh, no. No.
Just let them be flooded.
That's right, and there are dozens that will be inundated by this project.
And these are important to the local people.
Yeah. And this is the new dam that is being built across the river. You can see the stanchions that will form it.
It really takes its toll on the people and the wildlife.
This is this office where Maida stationed herself, and these are her awards on the wall with the peeling paint.
She won the prestigious Goldman Environmental Prize.
That's right, and that is among the awards that's there. And I should also mention that what that says is, to struggle is to live, and that really is Maida's slogan.
She does definitely struggle.
And there she is sitting at her writing desk.
Barely has survived all her fasts.
Right. And this was the model that we were shown of the dam. Instead of being able to take pictures of the dam, the authorities allowed Bob, the photographer, to take this picture. So he did that. We went to a protest that Maida organized in the city of Indore, and here she is at the protest surrounded by journalists.
And she does definitely get the coverage in India.
She does get both positive and negative coverage in India. There are a lot of people who are outraged that she would try to stop the march of development and progress, and many others who think of her as a saint. And this is also at the protest, surrounded by her supporters, people who'd come a couple hundred miles to participate in this protest. And now we move to Southern Africa. Ted Scudder, the anthropologist, is here in this little nation of Lesotho, looking down over an area that will eventually be inundated by a dam.
And that shows the tribal conflicts where you have one group of people being moved to an area where there's already a different tribe of people.
Right. Well, there are many cases where there's simply no available land, and so all sorts of conflicts happen when people get resettled. This is one of the newer resettlement projects. It looks kind of Levittown-ish, not very impressive, but actually an advance over the first ones, which were even worse.
They definitely are given not the best land.
No.
Or resources or water or sanitation. These resettlements just are not getting the support that is promised to the people.
And this is the Mohali Dam under construction. It's since been completed, but it's a massive dam in this country called Lesotho. And the biggest dam in this series of projects is called the Katse Dam, and there's the kind of promise that's implied. There's a picture of the Katse Reservoir in the back of a bus in Lesotho, and it just looks